So my name is Hunter Gronlund. I'm the Executive Operations Officer at Lewis Burke Associates. I'm basically running the day-to-day operations, and my sectors, range from HR related to accounting, administration, which gets into like compliance and audits. We're a government consulting firm, so we do have auditing that is done by the Senate, and we also have reporting mechanisms for that on a quarterly basis. So just making sure we're fulfilling all of those obligations. And then in terms of client hospitality, right, we manage that. So we have clients in the office all the time, which is a huge deal for us to make sure, our IT environment is properly working, because that's always, the way that we engage them professionally. Hosting them for, especially when we have, like on the other day, we had Illinois in, and we had big conferences that were, speaking to people across the country. But yeah, so making sure that we've, primarily make sure that everything in the day-to-day operations is running smoothly, and that we have, contractors and vendor support that meets the needs of the firm. It all essentially comes to me, and I do triage, but ultimately, like, I'm trying to push that obligation responsibility away, and Orion's been helpful in taking on that burden and making sure that, they're handling those issues on a personal level and establishing the relationships with the employees so that they feel comfortable going to Orion with those issues rather than centralized to me. That's very important for the ability to take that role and responsibility off of me. I mean, that's my biggest point as vendor managers. Like, I don't want to be the person managing that relationship. I want to manage the vendor and let the vendor build those relationships out and decentralize away from me. I don't want to be the single point of failure. And so, that's very important. I've worked with, Samantha Joe, we had issues with certain laptops, especially when it comes to the president, where it's very sensitive to make sure that he is always up and running. They've sent personnel on site within, an hour to ensure that someone is here and is going to like cater to the president himself and make sure that, like, it's harder when the demand of the president is like very high, and like he doesn't want to work through an email or a phone call. It just gets, so having that ability of knowing like they're going to handle him at a higher level, they'll send someone in and make sure that, it just gives him that reassurance. Like, we've got a laptop here, it's already built out for you. You can continue to work from it while we fix this issue with your current laptop, and liaison with Dell as needed to fix the issues that is going on. So just, I didn't have to like go out of my way to be like, send someone in my office. It's like they took the initiative to be like, okay, this is a higher role executive, and we get that this is time sensitive. So we're going to escalate this ourselves to make sure that he gets support that he needs. And it was the team approach, rather than, every other vendor I met with one, maybe two people, but it was like always some other like, vice president or executive stepping in. It was like every time I met with Orion, it was like 3 to 4 people, and they were like, this is your team. So it felt like I was already establishing rapport with the team of people that I was going to be working with, that I felt comfortable with, rather than, oh, I'm just meeting with the salesperson and you'll get your team signed later, regardless of if not you've, are going to establish a relationship with them, right? So like, I didn't know exactly who I was going to be working with a lot of these firms, where it was like, okay, I like these individuals, they're speaking my language, they understand my needs, and this is who I'm going to be working with. So that's a big deal for me, because I mean, there's so many different vendors out there, and you can't necessarily pick and choose who you get to work with once you select a vendor. You just get assigned a team, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to work great. So that was like a huge deal for me. I mean, a lot of these vendors provide the same things, so it's really hard for me to say one is better than the other when line by line they're very similar. At the end of the day, it comes down to customer support, and that's like a really hard one to read between the lines, other than, reaching back to, current users and reaching out to them and see how they like their support, and doing some of those reviews. But yeah, I think it was the team approach that I appreciated, and knowing that I was already establishing a relationship with the group of individuals I was going to be working with.